All right. So it seems like we should start now. It's 3 minutes past. And my name is Stellan Windhagen, and I'm welcoming you all to the Resistance Studies webinar that we have this time, together with Mahmoud Soliman from Palestine. Let me first just say something about the context here. Resistance Studies Initiative is based at University of Massachusetts in Amherst, United States. And we are a unique place that are trying to critically reflect around resistance in many different ways. And we bring academics and experienced activists together to reflect upon unarmed resistance. And we have, as one of the things we're doing, these webinar series. We also have courses, we have research, we have a number of projects going on. So if you look at our website, we will put that in the chat soon. You will know more about the different things we're doing. So this is part of a series that we have the year round with reflections on resistance. Next time, there will be a webinar that is dealing with international debt and resistance. That might also be something that people can be interested in. That's happening on April 28th. But today then, we are honored to have Mahmoud Soliman with us. Mahmoud is affiliated to the Department of Sociology at UMass Amherst. And also he is a fellow connected to the Resistance Studies Initiative. Mahmoud is based in Palestine and he's an activist. He's done his PhD in 2019 in Coventry, but he's dealing with resistance going on in Palestine. And that's part of what he's going to bring up now, together with also new research that he's been doing. So with that, Mahmoud, I'm welcoming you, and I'm very, very happy to have you here to present for us. Mahmoud will be explaining the context in Palestine, also the resistance of lifestyle resistance, and then we will have time for Q&A, the last part of this webinar that will be going on for 1.5 hours. All right. So with that, I'm giving over the floor to you, Mahmoud. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Stalin. Thank you to everyone who is attending. Thank you to Debbie and everyone at UMass University to give me this chance to talk about the lifestyle as resistance in Palestine, the case study of marginalized communities in the occupied Palestine. I want you to take into consideration that not only the land is occupied, but also the air and the water. So maybe the internet connection will face problems, challenges, the same as Palestinians. So also waves are occupied in Palestine. So I want you to bear that and until we come back if this happens. So today I will be talking about one of the most challenging conflicts in the world, which is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I want to take you back to let's say, before the Nakba, 1948, since the Balfour Declaration, when you can see in this map that Palestine was historical Palestine. There were like people living, Palestinians. So there were like people with different lifestyles, countryside, cities, and Palestine was famous at that time with many aspects, and people were living together from different faiths as one nation up to 1948. In 1948, when the Nakba happened, which is important to focus on as a transformation point in the history of the Palestinians, when 750,000 Palestinians were expelled from their land and scattered in the West Bank and Gaza, also to the neighborhood countries like Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and many other countries. And those people mainly concentrated in camps, were living in camps in the West Bank, in Gaza Strip, and elsewhere. What happened is, in 1967, Israel occupied entire historical Palestine, as you can see in this map, where we are talking about displacement of Palestinians even within West Bank and Gaza Strip. And back in 1948, the United Nations resolutions regarding the end of the conflict based on ceasefire, based on ending, withdrawing from occupied territories, and lately to two-state solutions such as 242 resolution. However, what happened?
Sorry, Mahmoud, you have to share the screen so that we can see the maps.
Sorry, I thought that it is shared, but now I will share it with the people. So here it is. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, now it works. Thank you very much.
Good. So this is the maps that I am talking about. So the two-state solution that all the peace talks took place in 1993 and the Oslo Accords to have two states based on map, this map, number 3, which is West Bank and Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem included, the Palestinian future state, where two states can live side by side. And based on that, they signed Oslo Accords, which divided the West Bank and Gaza into 3 categories. Area A, which is around 18% of the occupied West Bank. Area B, which is 30%, less than 30% of the occupied Palestinian territories, and 60% were left as Area C. But what happened is that Israel continued to build settlements and to control more and more Area C. And that's where we came to 2020 with what Mr. Trump proposed, a peace, what so-called peace plan, to have a Palestinian state as in this last map, which means that Israel will be able to annex 40% of Area C. So this kind of illegal annexation of occupied territories that is recognized by United Nations and international law as occupied territories. So what we are going to focus on today, if you can see in this map, the West Bank, and this is the Jordan Valley, and this is the South Hebron Hills. The scope of this study is focusing on Area C, and particularly on South Hebron Hills and the Jordan Valley, as you can see in the map. Why we are targeting these areas? Because these areas are under threat from the Israeli occupation authorities, and also marginalized from the Palestinian Authority because it is under full Israeli military occupation. And that is very, very important. So that's why those marginalized communities that are the most threatened communities in Palestine, they are facing forcible displacement. They are facing all let's say, the designed laws that Israel is implementing in order to displacement, to push them, to expel them from these areas so that they can use them for the purpose of the Israeli settlers who are living there. So that's why we are focusing on them. Back to the point that when Palestinians were expelled from their homes, villages, in 1948, some of these communities were Bedouins from the south of historical Palestine in the desert of Nakab. In Arabic, we call it Nakab, and in Hebrew, they call it Negev. And they did not settle in camps. So those people, in order to understand how lifestyle at where everyone was doing, what is their daily actions, as Bedouins, they moved to the West Bank, mainly to the South Hebron Hills area and to the Jordan Valley, which is the east mountains and land of the West Bank. Why they choose there? Because they are searching less inhabited areas, less populated areas with these people, because they want to graze their sheep, because they want to continue their lifestyle. So we are talking about 200,000 Palestinian Bedouins scattered in these areas. Those people lived with their livestock and built their tents in these hills and areas in the Jordan Valley and the South Hebron Hills. Now, according to the reports from United Nations organizations such as OCHA and Israeli human rights organizations, 80% of the inhabitants of these areas are refugees. So they refuse to go and live in camps. So there where we are focusing in our study on Area C as a marginalized community. As we said before, Area C consists 60% of the West Bank area. This means politically there will be no Palestinian state without Area C. Because if I am now living in Bethlehem, if I want to move to Ramallah, I will pass through settlements. This means that there will be no continuity on the ground, and there will be no water resources, no resources in the future Palestinian state if Israel annexes Area C. So what policies Israel implemented on the ground or has been implementing on the ground in order to displace Palestinians from their communities that they are living there, which is targeting two kinds of residents in these areas: farmers who are living in small villages and own the land, and shepherds, the Bedouins who are relying on their livestock. So what Israel designed is that they divided Area C into different categories in order to make this matrix of control over them. What they did is they clarified more than, for example, 17% of Area C already they built on its settlements. They built on 17% of Area C settlements, which are big, with more than, let's say, 400,000 settlers apart from Jerusalem, East Jerusalem. Another 30% is recognized as classified as firing zone, which means that the army, the Israeli occupation forces, can evict people at any time. And then there is also 20% as natural reserves where Palestinians are not allowed to be there. And if they found them, they took their livestock, they arrest shepherds, and they prevent them from entering these areas. Another other restrictions like bypass roads and unpermitted places for Palestinians to be in is like 32%. So the Palestinians are scattered in all of this area, but only 1% of Area C where Palestinians are, let's say, allowed to build, or they can get permits to live and to have like a normal life. So with these restrictions that the government puts, the aim is to push Palestinians away and to convert the land into state land that can be used by settlers to expand settlements, to build a new settlements, to dig bypass roads, and to use it not for the purposes of the Palestinians, the indigenous population, but for the new settlers who came to live in this area. So when we are talking about policies by the states, these are the kind of classification the government gave to Area C. Now, if we are talking about firing zones means that they can evict communities when they want to conduct trainings. What the army is doing, they intentionally do the training in summer, for example, in May and June, when the crops are dying. And these are with the life and emission, there will be fire. So they are destroying the environment, destroying the crops of the farmers, the shepherds that they plant. And they are also destroying everything in these areas. Similarly, in both in Jordan Valley and South Hebron Hills, they are doing this. And there are many communities who are living in these areas. For example, 15 communities in the South Hebron Hills are living in firing zones, in zones where they can evict them from these areas. Now, it is not up to this point that they classified these areas to Area A, to firing zone, natural reserves, and other restrictions they put in the Palestinians. So when we are talking about these communities, for example, if we look at this map, this area is the South Hebron Hills. We can see the blue line is the blue color is settlements or under the control of the Palestinians. This area is close, the red one is the firing zone, which means that there are 15 communities that they expelled from that area. In the South Hebron Hills, where this study is targeting, there are 30 Palestinians and villages, all located with more than 4,000 inhabitants. They are living this semi-Bedouin lifestyle, means that they are relying on farming and grazing sheep and goats. 15 communities, as I said, are living in firing zone. 50% of the area of the South Hebron Hills is classified by the Israeli authorities as firing zone. And there are, as you can see in the map with this blue color, there are settlements that are surrounding the communities of South Hebron Hills. Now, in the Jordan Valley, which is located to the east of the West Bank, this between the Jordan River and the east hills of West Bank, and it is more than 1 million dönum, where 1 dönum is 1 kilometer square, and it is under full Israeli control, with more than 27 Palestinian communities living there, with more than 6,500 inhabitants. And by the way, the number of inhabitants of the Jordan Valley has dramatically decreased as a result of the Israeli policies since 1948. Also, the restriction and the classifications in the Jordan Valley is 20% of the Jordan Valley is classified as firing zone. What left for Palestinians from the Jordan Valley is 5%, where they can move, stay, but still they are not safe and under threat of forcible displacement. Back to the Israeli policies that they are targeting the communities is house demolition. According to the figures, each year the number of house demolishing is increasing. So, for example, in 2020, 919 houses, tents, shelters have been demolished for the communities in Area C. In 2019 is list 677. Therefore, the house demolishing is another tactic and strategy used by the Israeli authorities to forcibly displace the Palestinians from these areas. We said they classify either natural reserves or firing zones or state land. This means that the existence of the Palestinian community in these areas is illegal according to the Israeli law. Thus, they will not give them building permits to build houses. That's why all the houses are under demolishing orders. And by the way, this is not only targeting Palestinians who are living in the occupied territories, but also it is targeting Palestinians who are Israeli citizens in the Nakab, and they are forcibly displacing them, destroying their homes, and attacking them the same as they are doing to the Palestinians who are living in the occupied territories. So house demolishing is one of the tactics, and we will see how it is affecting the lifestyle of the people. Another tactic is the land confiscation that settlers are doing, state actors are doing. So in the upper photo, you can see olive trees that were chopped by settlers. In the lower photo, this photo, you can see the bulldozers confiscating the land in order to widen a bypass road to the settlements in the occupied territories. So these are kind of activities and by government. We both are doing the same, but the government building the Palestinian landscape, while the settlers are targeting what the people owns, land, all trees, livestock, whatever in their way they are going to destroy. And these the settlers attacks are targeting the communities in the South Hebron Hills and in the Jordan Valley, and they are aiming at pushing the Palestinians from the land in order to build a new settlements. And as we said, another attacks, as you can see in these photos, in the South Hebron Hills and in the Jordan Valley, the one in the left is settlers came over by their cars on the sheep of a farmer in the Jordan Valley. On the second one, you can see the settlers attacking the Palestinian shepherd with their sheep. And that is that reflects, as one of the shepherds said, when he said that the settler stabbed my father's goat 14 times. They stabbed the goat of his father, which means that those shepherds, those farmers, are doing resistance in a way or another. The existence of these people by their everyday actions is a kind of resistance, and settlers do not want to see them. That explains why they are chopping olive trees or killing the sheep and livestock of the farmers and shepherds in the Jordan Valley and South Hebron Hills. Now, another tactic actually the settlers are using recently, since 2016, which is to adopt the pastoral Palestinian life. So settlers are coming to hills in the West Bank, especially Jordan Valley and South Hebron Hills, and they build tents, or as you can see in these two photos, the upper one is a tent where they come with their sheep also, and they stay there. And the second one is where they build a kind of shelters to stay in, and it became like the starting point of a settlement. And these two, the tent and this shelter, are illegal according to the Israeli law. But what happened is to create a fact on the ground. When they create the fact by building these things, the Palestinian who owns this land since hundreds of years has to prove that this is his land. Not the settler who just came yesterday has to do that. So that's why it's complicated, and we will explain later how this impacts the lifestyle is resistance of the Palestinian farmers and Bedouins. So what the settlers aim is to control the land, to narrow down the space of grazing sheep in the Jordan Valley and the South Hebron Hills, and also to attack communities, to create fear among the communities, so they will not stay in the area and will leave the area, and they are burn the fields, the crops, even sometimes they took the sheep, let the dogs eat the sheep of the farmers. So they attack the communities to let them leave the area, and they control this. So we can see from this how the settlers are adopting Palestinians' lifestyle. And after 1948, the Israeli government issued laws in July 1950. The Israeli government issued a law called the Black Palestinian Goat, where they prevented the Palestinians from having these Palestinian goats, and because these goats are able to spread on the mountains, are able to walk 10 kilometers per day or more, and they advertise for the Swiss goats. And when they were advertising, They were saying, oh, this is a lovely goat. You can put it at home. You can have it on the terrace. You can have it around the house. It's a friendly goat, just to make people stuck in one place. And they do not want them to keep on their traditional way of life. And in 1963, the Minister of Agriculture of Israel visited Al-Nakab, which is now is part of Israel. And he said, we have to change the lifestyle of the Palestinian Bedouins. We want to see their children are able to see their fathers coming back from industrial zones, working as workers in Israel instead of being with their sheep on the mountains. We want them to change their clothes, habits, traditions, and this will be done in 2 generations. This phenomena of the Bedouins and the farmers will end. And on the other hand, they encourage settlers to adopt this kind of life to control the Palestinian land. So now, the main findings of this study is about how lifestyle is nonviolent resistance. Why Palestinians do not want to be urbanized in a way or another, as the Israeli government is trying to do with the Bedouins in the Nakab, and to collect them in one community. So these communities and this lifestyle has make the residents to have a constant presence on the land. And if we say they are constantly on their land, what does it mean for a Bedouin to be on the land? This means that every day, with this kind of life, way of life, everyday actions, they go in the mountains. They spread on the mountains. They go with their sheep to graze them. So they are the one who are able to notice every change on the ground. They are the one who are able to notice the movements of the settlers and the army. So they are the one who are able to act as fast as possible in order to prevent settlers and army from establishing de facto on the ground that will be legalized by the Israeli law. So this is the Bedouins. This is the kind of life that those people are living. Now, regarding farmers, they are permanently on their land. They are cultivating their land on daily basis. What does that mean? This is for let's say inhibiting the Israeli government from converting Palestinian land from private property into a state land, because Israel is using an old Ottoman laws since more than 100 years, where if you do not cultivate your land for 3 years, this land will be transformed to state land. And what then they do is that they rent this land to the Jewish National Fund that rents some of these lands to the settlers, who then start farming, converting it to settlements. And now they let, for example, the Jewish National Fund to buy land and build settlements. Before it was doing in a hidden way, but now they are doing it in an overt way. So such kind of lifestyle made those residents to stay on their land. One farmer told me from the Jordan Valley, one day while I was with my sheep, I saw a settler built his tent and brought his sheep and goats and start fencing more than 10,000 dunums. I urged the people of the community to come, and we managed to stop him, and we took away the fence that he put on the Palestinian land. He said, if we didn't do that as fast as possible, then he will stay there. He will be able to stay there, and then it will be impossible to evict him. And the government, the Israeli authorities, will not take him away, because both are having the same goal, which is to take the land. So, from this story and many other stories that we collected from the field about the constant presence of farmers and Bedouins on their land that enabled them to inherit the Israeli annexation of the land, whether from the settlers as individuals or from the state actors or the Israeli authorities. And I am not saying that this will liberate Palestine, but this will help to protect the land, and this will create life of Palestinians in these areas. Another another kind of lifestyle values that those communities have enabled them to be more attached to their land and to be as a group and to act collectively. So, for example, they are tribe-based communities, and they have a kind of hierarchy that they are together, they are helping each other, they have special traditions and norms that make their sense of belonging to the land, to the desert, to the nature, that it make them respect and do not want to change this lifestyle. And that, as I said before, Israel tried to urbanize the Bedouins in the Nakab, and they failed. Some communities in the Nakab have been demolished more than 100 times, and they refuse to be in concrete houses. They want to be in the nature with their sheep, with their in their tents. So these traditions that also inherited from the elderly generation, whether for farmers who are extended families or for Bedouins, they have their traditions, culture that is inherited, as I said, from the elderly generations. Now, if we look at also the kind of the lifestyle of the Bedouins and the farmers, they are able to endure hardship life, but at the same time, they have a very, their life is simple life. It is a very simple life in a way that they can live with very basic life, basic matters of life. So they Bedouins are living in tents with no services. You can see that there is like a community water well where everyone is going to have water. You can find them traveling on donkeys, and they are using still the traditional ways of life. And I mean, similarly, the farmers, for example, in the South Hebron Hills or in the Jordan Valley, for example, in the South Hebron Hills, they are living, some of them, in caves, and they are happy. It's there sometimes, you know, they want to stay in their land. They do not want to leave. As I said, they have extended families in nearby towns, but they do not want to leave their land. Their sense of belonging to the land is high. And that's why they are living in caves or in brick houses, very simple brick houses with minimum services. And this kind of life and way of life enabled them to bypass their pressure from the Israeli authorities. They imagine they are destroying and they are building, and they remain on their land. They do not want to leave, even despite all the oppression from the Israeli government. They want to stay on their land. So when we are talking about this simple life with this endure of the hardship of life, they are able to stay, to remain more resilient on their land, and to stay with sumud, as they call it. So when they have this ability to stand in front of all these challenges, it's fostered by the lifestyle. And here we can create the connection between resilience or sumud and the lifestyle these communities are living, uh, in a way that they are able to bear this life. So when we hear like when we visited communities, we were arguing how many days we are able to stay, but they are the one who are able to live this life for forever. They are the one who knows the area very well. They, when, for example, Humsa community to the north of the Jordan Valley were demolished 5 times in less than 2 months, because the people want to stay there. Without the kind of lifestyle they have, they will not be able to stay there. This is how they are able to bypass Israeli oppressions, and how they rebuild what they destroyed. And when I asked one of the shepherds in Humsa community about how they are able to bear this life and so on, where they are going to sleep the night after, if the army, when the army destroyed their tents, he told me the army do not know the area as we know the area. We are the one who know the area. We are the one who knows the details of the area. And he raised his head and looked at a hill where he told me there are caves that the army do not know about them, and we are going to stay there. So we have many choices. We are unable to live in concrete houses. We do not want to be there because our freedom is by being here. If the Israelis want us to be in one place, let them send us back to our land before 1948. So that's how those people are resilient. One of the kind of lifestyle those people have is that they are productive communities. So they have this kind of productive economic lifestyle. If we are talking about Bedouins and farmers, they are relying on their products, milk products, land products. So they are independent. So imagine Israel is giving permits to workers whenever they can stop these permits, whenever they can stop workers from going to their work, and they change the lifestyle of the people. But these communities remain remain resilient on their land because they are independent. So how this enabled them to overcome the challenges the government is putting on them. So they do not need permits. They do not need settlements to work in. They do not need Israel to work in. They depend on the local market to market their products, to rely on what they produce. That's why they need the spaces. So imagine each single sheep the outcome from the milk and the babies is more than 400 US dollars. But if they stop grazing their sheep, they have to feed them. And this means that they have to put more expenses on their livestock and on their land. And that's why, they are they want to stay on this lifestyle, and they do not want to change and to change their lifestyle, because they will be less productive. And I can give you an example of a Palestinian community that was displaced in east of Jerusalem, and uh, each family owned like 1,000 sheep. Now all the community has 300 sheep. So they changed their lifestyle. Instead of moving from one place to another, they are now concentrated in one place, and they want them to be close to area A and B. And that is very, to highlight this and to emphasize on this, that the displaced communities that the Israeli government is building for these communities in area C are very close to area A and area B. Why? Because they want to merge them. They want them to be under the control of the Palestinians. And why that? Because if they get rid from the people, they can control the land. And this exactly fits with the Zionist mission, the land without people, for the people without land. That's why they want to displace the people and to change their lifestyle, so they cannot be independent, they cannot be productive. They rely on the Israeli economy in order to eat and to drink. So these communities manage to protect their land, manage to protect their collective identity. So when they are on their land, they defend their land. As I said before, if they ignore their land, Israel will transform it to state land. They will take it, and they bluff the land. They use their traditional way to cultivate the land. As one of the farmers said, every year I plant 1,000 dunam of barley and wheat for my livestock in order to feed them in summer when there is no grass. And when we do this, we rely on ourselves and we stay independent. And by this constant presence and the acts that they are doing in on daily basis, they protect their existence. They protect their collective identity as Palestinians. So one of the farmers told me, when we are here in spring, many Palestinians come to visit this area. It is great to have them here because it's wonderful landscape in spring. So we welcome people and we give them food and drinks because we want Palestinians to come in order to create life in this area. And all of this is to defend on their values as people living in these communities with their traditions, culture, and and social relations, because this kind of life, that they protect this heritage, cultural heritage that they have. And what Israel wants is to change this lifestyle culturally, socially, and economically. So that's why they are resisting the forcible displacement of these communities. Now, I want to conclude with that. This kind of life give hope to the Palestinians. It is a kind of research that is done to these communities, that through their everyday acting, non-organized, but their own way of life, their lifestyle, help them to protect their land, to inhibit sometimes the Israeli policies on the ground. Every doing of these communities inhibited the settlement, the Israeli settlement expansion and land annexation. Their life value fostered their resilience, sumud, and their collective identity against the Israeli occupation authorities' policies of ethnic cleansing from their area. Uh, I mean, that's what we reached in this research, that the lifestyle uh, of these communities are crucial in the Palestinian struggle to protect the land in Area C that is the most under the Israeli threat. I want to stop here and to leave the space for questions and answers, so that we can have a kind of dialogue here to enrich this. And thank you very much for listening and for attending.
Thank you so much, Mahmoud, for this. And I'm happy that the sound was working most of the time. There was some instability, but I think we could get what you were saying. And it's fascinating research. And actually, the first question is around if there exists some kind of a paper where people can read more about the research that exists as a background of this that you have presented now. Could you guide us there?
Yes, I am writing this paper, and it will be public soon, about all the data, about all the lifestyle of the Palestinian communities, that will be available for people to read in the near future.
Okay, great. So does that mean that if people contact you directly through email or through the Resistance Studies Initiative, they could get a copy of the paper once it's available?
Yeah, that's true, and I will be more than happy if they can contact me via the Research Study Initiative or directly, in order to share with them when it is available.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Um, so we have two questions that are from Marwan Darwish, and maybe you would like to present them yourself by speaking. I will see if we are able to let Marwan speak. If you unmute yourself now, Marwan, I think you can speak.
Oh, can you see me? Yes. Or can I? Okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
We can hear you.
Yes, you can hear me. Okay. Yeah. So let me just a second. Yeah. So my questions really, I'm basically really fascinated how if Mahmoud can explain a little bit, give us a sense of examples of the type of actions that that the Bedouin take in this sort of struggle that to stay on their land. And from from your research, Mahmoud, what is the nature of it? What, there must be sort of a range of things that they do. Do you have any idea of how to categorize it, or how they're different from each other? So that is one question. And the second question is, I mean, you talked about that, the fact that this is a very important, the style of life that they have is so critical in the resilience, in the resistance. I was thinking, sort of try to turn the question upside down and ask you, what do you give us an idea what would happen if these Bedouin will lose this style of life that you are presenting? So what would happen? What will they lose? I hope it's clear and you could hear me.
Yes, Marwan, thank you very much for these questions. And let's say, yeah, the research is focusing on the kind of lifestyle that enabled those communities in order to do actions that they are doing on daily basis to protect their land. Now, these actions regarding those residents may be not considered as resistance, but if we search it and explore it, we will discover it is a form of resistance. And it is different than the everyday resistance that they are doing it, or the collective actions some communities are doing, or let's say the sit-ins and demonstrations. So in these communities, there are like the organized resistance, popular nonviolent resistance. There are the sit-ins, the other kinds of, let's say, categories of resistance that these communities, even the legal struggle, they are doing and so on. But our research is focusing on a kind of actions that even not recognized, I would say, as everyday resistance. I would say it is less visible than everyday resistance. If my purpose is to go and cultivate my land, it is because I need this to cultivate it. It's because my lifestyle is like that. So the link between lifestyle and resistance cross these categories of resistance from everyday to collective actions. So there where I found it is, so there is a difference. I give you an example. If there is a difference between organizing a demonstration at the entrance of a village and what the villagers are doing on daily basis. It's different than if we go and support and stand beside a community residents that are facing forcible displacement. Yet there is another kind of invisible resistance that is coming from the lifestyle of these people. That's where we have to see. I mean, in my village, I give you an example. In January, when the settlers came to the village, the first to approach them, to see them, are the shepherds, because they are there. Workers will not be able to do it because they are working away from their land. So settlers will be able to build their tents or mobile houses on the land. So there are different kinds of actions those people are doing on their daily doings, but it means a lot. To me, I see them as a special kind of resistance. For them, maybe it is just to survive and live their life and protect their land, and so on. So there are different kind of actions that people are doing on daily basis. Nakab, Arakib, and South Hebron Hills, Jordan Valley are great examples of the kind of actions those communities are doing in order to protect their lifestyle. Now, what they will lose if they change their lifestyle, that is this phenomenon. Let's put it like in a post-colonial era. They tried it in America to urbanize indigenous Americans, or in Canada or Australia, In many contexts, they tried to change the lifestyle of the indigenous people, and this has failed to uh, to bring the change that the people want. And on the contrary, like indigenous Americans, all the activist movements are coming from these indigenous people. Similarly, in Palestine, they tried that in Nakab to change the lifestyle, but they failed. And when they managed to do it, I mean, to bring the people in these areas by force, we noticed that those people, they start to have conflicts, they start to have economic problems. Imagine a shepherd who is not skilled and who used to be in the mountains, and he is expert in milk and in grazing sheep, and suddenly you want him to do a job, a different kind of job. This will create problems, and there are some communities that they forcibly displace them, and they are change their lifestyle, and they lost a lot. Socially, they have more problems, less solidarity. In order to productive in their Bedouin lifestyle, they became at home. Or how you are going to trust others according to their traditions. So women are affected. Youth became facing social problems with the drugs and with other kind of social problems. Economic level, they lost their productivity and they rely on working in settlements and Israeli economy. And culturally, who are they? How they will protect their identity as with their lifestyle? Actually, their lifestyle is differentiate them from others, even from Palestinians living in big towns. So urbanization is a colonial process that will make those people dependent on the colonial power, and that's why they are going to lose a lot on the cultural, social, and economic level. I hope that I give kind of answer to your question, Marwan.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, sort of, I think I understand exactly what do you mean by the lifestyle. It is actually, it's not something that you can separate. It is an integral part of everything they do. Thank you, Mahmoud.
Thank you very much. And we have endorsement here from Abigail that is saying that to try and change the lifestyle is a typical effort of settler colonialism. I move over to next question that is from Jan. What is the role of international solidarity from activists within these communities, if there is any role?
Yeah, let me. There is a role actually when, especially with the kind of attacks coming from settlers. I give you an example of yesterday that it happened when a group of Hilltops youth that are fundamentalists who were evicted from Gaza in 2005 when Sharon withdrew from Gaza, and they settled in the West Bank. They attacked an Israeli activist, and they beat him, and it's public on video with the masked Top Hill youth. So there are a role for international solidarity that they accompany shepherds. They stay with these communities in order to document human rights violation, because this might tie the hands of the occupation power, the settlers, because they are afraid from being this to be published or to be advocated. This will give a bad image of Israel as a democratic state, the only democracy in the Middle East. So international solidarity, I think, also by coming, visiting, seeing, delivering the message of these communities helps a lot, and can create a pressure on their governments, on their relations. Especially, I give you an example. If you now look at the JNF, the Jewish National Fund, that is market themselves as the first environmentalist organization since more than 100 years. And actually what they are doing is the cover mask of the colonial practices of Israel. They are the one who is taking the land, annexing the land. So international solidarity, I think, by knowing what is happening here, they will be able to stop these practices from the Jewish National Fund or many other Zionist organizations in their countries. From also human rights perspective, when human rights organizations come, see, document a report, and send these reports, can increase awareness among people all over the world to know what is happening in Palestine, and to know the reality from the residents, directly from the people who are affected by such practices from the Israeli government.
Thank you so much, Mahmoud. We have a question here from Patricia that is saying, thank you, Mahmoud, for the presentation. I like the way you demonstrated that Palestinians in South Hebron Hills and Jordan Valley are connected by the problems they both face. Can you tell us something about any joint resistance?
Yes, if we talk about the joint resistance in the Jordan Valley and in the South Hebron Hills, if we see that the similarities of the lifestyle, as we said before, that this study is focusing on South Hebron Hills lifestyle and Jordan Valley, which are similar. And from there, they have a common understanding that facilitate the joint struggle between both sides. And if we mean by the joint struggle between Palestinian and Palestinians, yes, I give you examples of the youth of South Hebron Hills have a huge experience in grazing sheep and protecting shepherds and behaving collectively on the when settlers attack them, how they behave and how they protect shepherds. They shared their experience with the Jordan Valley shepherds because they have less experience in confronting the Israeli settlers. And they were sharing their experiences with the Jordan Valley residents. Another issue is that when it comes, as I said, when I said about cultural heritage that they inherited, which give lifestyle value to be attached to the land and to stay there, they come together, and we did a project together between the Jordan Valley and the South Hebron Hills, when we bring groups together and they share their experiences about lifestyle, making bread, for example, in the Jordan Valley, and making bread in the South Hebron Hills, shepherds' daily life in the Jordan Valley and South Hebron Hills. So there is a kind of this joint struggle between both the Jordan Valley and the South Hebron Hills, especially some of they are coming all from the south. They, even in the Jordan Valley, they came from the south in 1948 and later on. So there is a kind of joint activities between the two communities that is based on culture, based on lifestyle, actually, based on the common things, the everyday doing of both communities that is similar to each other. And I think they benefited from each other, especially the Jordan Valley. They benefited from South Hebron Hills experience in countering and sharing this example. Let me give you an example about creativity also in both communities. When they, the South Hebron Hills, rehabilitate caves to bring back people to live in the area. Similarly, in the Jordan Valley, when they built these mud houses, when they make the hay and clay bricks to build houses, schools, community centers, to show the identity, the collective identity of Palestinians. They share these experiences with each other as a joint resistance in South Hebron Hills and in Jordan Valley. That's one aspect. I think it's important that they focus on culture, heritage in both locations. I hope I understand your question, Patricia.
Thank you very much, Mahmoud. I have a question myself, and I'm sure you're aware that there has been a couple of dissertations besides yours that is highlighting the everyday or lifestyle resistance of Palestinians by Nichme Ali and Carol Daniel Kaspari, for example. So at least the three of you have highlighted this form of resistance. And my question is that it doesn't seem to me to be a coincidence that we are in a time when the top level negotiations looks very bleak. The situation for Palestinians is very, very difficult. As you refer to the Trump plan, it's kind of disregarding the rights of Palestinians totally. So what about this whole aspect of the resistance that is going on in the everyday, the lifestyle? Is the Palestinian Authority, is the Palestinian leadership, are they recognizing and understanding the value of this form of resistance? Or is it only something going on among the popular committees and among people on the ground? Could you say something about that?
Yeah, it's clear that, as you said, focusing on the everyday resistance and the kind of resistance coming from the grassroots level is a kind of hope that among people that we are able to resist, we are able to let's say do resistance against the occupation at a time the political parties, the Palestinian Authority, and all the top elites are unable to protect Palestinians or to resist the occupation, as some Palestinians are seeing this. So they, in a way, on a theoretical level, yes, they in their speeches, in their conferences, in their to their people, they are acknowledging this kind of resistance. But this is when it comes to practice, it became symbolic, which is the contrary of everyday resistance. What everyday resistance, it's the resistance you are doing on daily basis, not as a symbolic issue. So elites are doing these symbolic things that they come one day, very few people. So it does not, there is no translation for their theoretical and speeches to the practice on the ground. and they do not urge their members and the political party members to participate in the everyday resistance and to mobilize resources for that. And most importantly, is that they know that Area C and these marginalized communities is the core of the conflict. And so they supposed to allocate budgets to support these communities, infrastructure, development, whatever. And that is only ink on paper. And I think because of that, people start to see that they have to shift the pyramid. Why? To have the head of the pyramid down. Let's put the pyramid in its regular, stable position, which is from bottom to up. And that's where people want to see the hope from bottom. And actually, from what I see is the people on the ground are strong. The people are, I don't want to say they gave hope, gave up from the elites, but what is happening now, there will be elections. I didn't see that they give a priority to popular resistance or to everyday resistance through their lists or programs. And that's, they go more for these public slogans, general slogans, not for specific things such as what is on the ground, what the people need based on their daily life. So there is no real representation. There are symbolism, and there is acknowledgement on a theoretical level, not on a practical level, where you can see a real mobilization of people and of resources to support, stand beside the residents of Area C in order to stand in front of the forcible displacement of these communities, and to stop land annexation or confiscation. Therefore, the people rely on themselves, and I can understand why we all are focusing on everyday resistance on a grassroots level, because we want to see the hope. We want to see the hope from bottom. We do not want to look up for the elites who are divided, no clear strategy, and they see the liberation from outside. But we see the liberation from inside. We see the liberation from what we inherited from our grandparents and parents, to be on our land, to act on daily basis as resistance, and to make from our existence resistance. That's why we are able to see South Hebron Hills are able to stand up for their rights. It's not because of the support from the elites, it's because of their values, it's because of what they see a meaning for their life, to struggle for their cause in order to live in peace and freedom.
Thank you very much. I love your passionate talk there, Mahmoud. There's a hope. There's a future for the Palestinian resistance. There's a follow-up question here from Abigail. But how can the Palestinian authorities do anything in Area C when it's under total security and administrative Israeli control?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons actually that's always given, that we are not allowed to build and develop in Area C and give support. Yet there are other ways that we can do it. I mean, it does not mean under Israeli control and occupation that Palestinians have to leave. They are there, and they are able to put pressure on the Israeli government. Like there are villages that manage to have master plans. There are villages, for example, a creativity with these people is we need electricity. So instead of having networks and having that Israel will destroy, we use renewable energy. The Palestinian Authority can offer renewable energy and rely on the lifestyle of these communities to hide and to install these solar panels. And this is like how it's in a way there are many international also organizations that are supporting with such aid to these communities. The Palestinian Authority is doing something, but this is not enough in order to enable the Palestinians to stand in front of all the Israeli policies. So if the Palestinian Authority is able to rely on the residents will find the way in order to bring the services to these communities. So there are budgets allocated from the PA, but they are not implementing them on the ground. They, you know, it states, as I said, there is a difference between what is written and what is implemented. We can overcome. We are the residents of the areas. We know it. That's why I think residents are able to overcome the challenges. I give you examples. If the PA said we will build every single house the Israelis are destroying, then the residents will escalate rebuilding and building new buildings. This will make them more and more in Area C. And that's where we have. And another issue is the resources. The resources are, there are reports for the World Camp, for World Bank and international organization that the resources are huge in Area C that people can use, but the Israelis prevent them. And the Palestinian Authority also should stand because for that, because this contradicts even Oslo agreement that the Area C supposed to be gradually transferred to the Palestinian control by 1999. So why to keep tying yourself to an agreement that your opponent is not respecting?
Thank you. I'll take two questions, which is one from Rematullah and one that was posted before the talk. So two questions here now towards the end. Which school of thought having popular support in Palestine community, meaning to raise their demands of getting their historical lands, non-violent or the armed struggle? That's the question from Rematullah. And then we have the question, what follows resistance and how does resistance relate to liberation? Not easy questions, but these are the two last questions here now.
Yeah, I mean, let's say first, what's more popular in Palestine, what kind of resistance? I think Palestinians are practicing different kinds of resistance, but popular resistance, from what I am describing, maybe we can count tens of thousands of non-violent actions or popular actions, while we maybe count a few violent actions or armed resistance. So what is most popular is what the people are doing. And from my point of view, it is the popular resistance that is more popular, more people are participating, and it is bearable. I mean, people are able to use it. Exactly as we are talking about today, is imagine if through your lifestyle there is resistance. But armed resistance is used in the past. Recently, very few. I mean, in since 2020, maybe less than 10 accidents armed resistance happened. While why the most popular is what people are doing on their basis. So when I'm giving you an example. If cultivating land is resistance, grazing the sheep is resistance, going to school is resistance. This means that this is popular in a kind of context like the Palestinian context. So it's not easy to deny one, but what the people are doing and what it means for them is the popular nonviolent resistance. Now, what follows resistance is, I don't know, the liberation resistance is a tool that we are using in order to liberate ourselves from occupation. This is a human behavior when you feel there is no justice. And this is what is the context in Palestine. We are under occupation, and what follow resistance is liberation, democracy, equality, justice, freedom, uh, with resistance. I don't think that Israel will stop occupying our land without resisting them, without telling them that you are not welcome as occupier in our land. So what follows resistance is freedom, is liberation, is equality, is to feel safe. I mean, I born under occupation. I grown up, lived my entire life under occupation. I don't know what does it mean safety. I want, after resistance, to see my children living in freedom and secure. That's what we miss. I mean, uh, everyone is at risk. Everyone feel insecure, and we want to see this moment when we will be free. That's why what we want after resistance and what follow resistance. I hope that I answered these difficult questions.
Thank you very much, Mahmoud Soliman. Um, it's inspirational to learn from you and to know of your combination of research and engaged activism, that you combine these things. And we at Resistance Studies Initiative, we are very proud of having you as a fellow with us. And we want to thank you very much for doing this seminar today. And we're looking forward to read your publications in future. And with this, I would like to end the seminar today, and want to highlight that we are having a new seminar on April 28th. You can sign up on our mailing list on the website to get the mailings about coming seminars. On the 28th, it will be about economic debt and resistance, presented by Dr. Farine Parvez. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Soliman, for this presentation. And we are looking forward for future presentations from you with your coming research and the results pointing towards the liberation of Palestine.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Stalin. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.